Drive carefully if they have to go out, but most of all, we hope you can find a way to stay home. And please, as we've said before, don't crowd the plows, especially now that the snow is falling heavily across the Commonwealth, and let the road crews do their jobs. We've seen the snowfall pick up. Most places are now seeing somewhere between 2 and 4 inches per hour, and that will make travel dangerous, especially as the winds increase. We just got another update from the National Weather Service, and they're expecting these totals to continue to ramp up to reach somewhere also into the early evening and tonight, which means we should all be mindful of ice on the roads, and a lot of work for our folks at the Highway Department in terms of treating that ice and trying to get it down to pavement by tomorrow morning. We're still anticipating that we'll see sustained winds of somewhere between 40 and 50 miles an hour, with gusts of up to 50 to 70 miles an hour along the coast. And that combination on the coast especially of high winds, wet snow, and freezing rain will cause a significant amount of downed trees and tree limbs and could result in some significant power outages. It will also make for some heavy shoveling. People need to remember to take it easy out there and not to overexert themselves when it's time to clean up. The MassDOT highway crews and contractors are working hard to treat the roads and clear the snow. We have about 3,000 trucks and other pieces of equipment out there at this point in time and are preparing to send out more. The state police have put about 200 extra police patrols out on the roads, and there have been no major accidents to report so far, largely due to people choosing to stay off the roads. The Lieutenant Governor and I are staying in pretty good touch, I would say, with local officials, and MEMA's also coordinating with about 5 communities that have activated their emergency response plans, and about 30 towns have opened up their emergency operations centers, and we're in touch with these communities to provide any assistance that we can. And we expect more of these to open up as the storm continues to move through the Commonwealth and the winds begin to increase. In terms of power outages generally, that number spiked recently from very few to around 10,000. We're asking our local officials to utilize their designated point of contact with their respective utility to ensure that we respond to these outages in an organized fashion. We're also watching the eastern-facing coastline communities very closely. The high tide is going to happen around 1:30. And as the winds have kicked up, large waves will join with that, probably as much as 12 to 15 feet. And we'll obviously move quickly if we need to assist in those communities. Just a few quick reminders. The DOT will not open the HOV lane on 93 for tonight's commute. A reduced speed limit was imposed on the Mass Pike as of 7 o'clock this morning, as well as travel restrictions on tandem and specialty trucks. Subway and bus service continues to operate normally with no weather-related delays at the moment, while the commuter rail continues to operate on its severe weather schedule. The MBTA's focus remains providing service today for those who do need to travel, while also focusing on cleaning up this evening in anticipation of providing a full service for tomorrow morning's commute. Please check mbta.com/winter and at MBTA on Twitter for real-time service updates. Anyone with a flight out of Logan Airport today or tonight should expect delays and cancellations. They had north of 150 of both earlier. And please check with your airline with respect to the information on your flight for either today or tomorrow. Should also check in with folks in your local communities related to school cancellations and other delays, and keep an eye out for important instructions for your neighborhood from local officials. And for further updates, we're pleased to be joined by a number of our colleagues from Transportation, Energy, and Public Safety. But I'd like to start by having the Lieutenant Governor talk a little bit about some of her interactions today with local officials. Thanks.
Thank you, Governor. Had a chance to touch base with a lot of our local officials today. One thing I can say is these are officials that we're anticipating this storm and certainly prepared for what it is bringing to our Commonwealth. And the needs vary depending on where they are in our state. Stemming from the west, certainly the first area of our Commonwealth to experience heavy snowfall. I've been hearing about 6 inches of accumulation, maybe a little bit more at this hour in Berkshire County, which will be most heavily impacted with snowfall. Certainly, DPWs are fully activated in western and central Massachusetts and throughout the Commonwealth. They feel that they have adequate equipment available to them within their own departments and through private contractors to help handle the now removal effort that's underway in western and central Massachusetts more actively. And that these emergency operations center, about 30 now, have been activated and are meant to coordinate with DPW, fire and police officials, health officials, to coordinate services that are needed on a local level. As we move further to the east, mayors and managers are more concerned with coastal flooding, with the high tide coming toward the Commonwealth early this afternoon in about an hour, and also wind picking up. I'd say many of the local officials across the state are concerned about higher wind in and around the Commonwealth, which could lead to power outages, which is probably the primary concern of all of our elected officials on the local level. But all in all, fully engaged, prepared, and ready to continue the snow removal effort, and then the post-snow sand, salt, and what would be needed to treat the roads after the snow leaves our Commonwealth much later today. Thank you.
Secretary Pollack.
Good afternoon. I'm Stephanie Pollack, Secretary of Transportation, here at the Highway Operations Center and at the MBTA Operations Center at 45 High Street. We're closely monitoring the storm. We've obviously now reached the point where across the Commonwealth we're seeing some difficult conditions, but because of the much lighter volumes that the governor mentioned, both on the roads and on the transit system, we're managing to keep operating, keep people safe. This is likely the point in the storm, especially here in the greater Boston area, where, as we've been saying, we're going to do everything possible to keep the roads passable and safe, but you may not see that black pavement for a while until we have a chance to play catch up. We also monitor the snow depths at our different depots throughout the state, so some of the numbers that have been reported here: 10 inches measured at Stockbridge, 7 so far at Springfield, 6 out in Warren, and then the numbers drop off as you move farther east, and we'll continue to monitor that. The MBTA is running regular service. Some of the buses have been moved to snow routes, and you'll need to check with MBTA.com or T-Alerts to know what those are. Commuter rail continues to operate on its severe weather schedule, and the ferries are closed down for the day, and the Mattapan high-speed trolley is being bussed, as we've been saying. But particularly this afternoon, as conditions worsen in the core of the MBTA service area here around Boston, we particularly urge anyone who is going to be going out and using the transit system to get somewhere to check either at mbta.com or T-Alerts or Twitter before traveling, to make sure that you know what's going on with the service you want to use. And as always, the most important thing for everyone who does need to travel is please do so safely. And for those of you who don't need to travel, thank you, and continue to stay off our roads, and you'll help make it easier for us to clean up so that everyone has a better chance at a normal day tomorrow. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Matt Beaton, Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs. I just want to reiterate a couple of things Governor Baker mentioned, particularly around power outages. At 11:30, we looked at the numbers. There were about 1,400. When the governor was just up here a moment ago, 10,000. Now at 12:15, we're looking at 23,000. So this could potentially be an indication of a trend that we may see the rest of this afternoon. So we just, again, want to reiterate the things that we've been saying all day. Safety, make safety a top priority. If you see down a limb on a live wire or just any live wire, please stay away from it. Contact your utility, and just be safe. Use common sense and stay away, and stay warm. if you do lose power. The utilities are well staged throughout the Commonwealth to respond. They will be actively working on restorations as soon as the winds allow. They need 35-mile-an-hour winds to be able to get back up into the bucket trucks, so there may be some time. We ask that you just be patient in restorations, check in on your neighbors, and again, just want to stress the safety element to all of this. Do have one ask to our municipal partners out there, that you identify one point of contact for your community to work with the utility municipal liaison, because if we do see an uptick in outages, it can get quite confusing for the utilities to manage when multiple people are looking for information. We do have protocols and we do have a process to have a single point of contact in each municipality to work closely with the municipal liaison inside the utilities. So again, thank you all very much, and be safe.
Good afternoon. My name is Dan Bennett. I'm the Secretary of Public Safety. As Governor Baker mentioned, there's 200 extra patrols for the state police. That gives us 600 patrols out in the highways and streets right now. Those patrols can be held over past 4 o'clock if the storm continues to strengthen and they're needed. There's also 300 patrols coming on at 4 o'clock, so that would continue to be out there. There'd be 900 patrols if necessary that could be out there. Also, with regards to the National Guard, General Keefe has over 30 vehicles out there right now for stranded motorists. They're specialty vehicles that are able to travel in high waters or over into deep snow piles. So if someone's stranded on the Massachusetts Turnpike, he could work with the state police, coordinated with MEMA to get those vehicles and get the passengers out of there. Or if someone is stranded by water, the National Guard could work coordinated with MEMA to get those individuals out of there. And MEMA is coordinating with the 29 communities that have activated their EOCs, as the governor mentioned. Thank you very much.
Questions?
How have your concerns at all changed in these few hours from what they were just at 8 o'clock this morning?
Well, obviously, the hit on the snowfall in what I would call sort of Springfield West, when the storm pivoted this morning, has led us to believe that we're going to be seeing at least 2 feet in Berkshire County and significant snow from Springfield West. That's obviously important to us. The other thing I would just say is, and we talked about this morning, the coastal winds, the switch over from snow to heavy snow to rain along the coast, and the possibility of power outages, which people have planned for and are pretty well staged with respect to dealing with it. I mean, that number was in the hundreds not so long ago. It was around 10,000 before we came out here, and now it's 23,000. Now, the good news is that's real-time understanding and appreciation of what's going on with respect to power outages, and it makes it possible for the utilities to respond to the ones that they can respond to directly pretty quickly. But as Secretary Beaton said, as the winds pick up, the ability the utilities are going to have to get to some of these, if they do require folks to go up in bucket trucks to solve the problems, are going to require the wind to come back down. That remains, I think, probably the thing we're most concerned about. I mean, as long as people stay off the roads, and as long as we are able to keep the roads clean, and as long as our colleagues in the state police force and local law enforcement are able to continue to patrol their own communities and make sure that people don't get stranded somewhere, I think that's obviously something we're concerned about too. No, I think first of all, we had a discussion about whether or not what level of emergency we should declare here, and basically made the decision that because the storm was going to impact different parts of Massachusetts differently, to limit this to just encouraging people to stay home and off the roads. We knew most school systems were not going to be open, and to encourage employers to the extent they could to permit their people to work from home, and for us basically to take the same stance as a Commonwealth as an employer. I think that was the right decision for us to make, in part because we are going to see major snowfall from sort of what I would describe as 128 west and significant snowfall from 128 east. And the other thing I would say is it would be difficult for us as a Commonwealth to encourage employers in Massachusetts to encourage their folks to work from home and to stay off the roads and to make it possible for us to aggressively clean up our public transportation and roads and transit systems if at the same time we weren't going to engage in a similar activity on behalf of our own employees.
What will you be doing for the rest of the day in terms of monitoring this one?
Well, I'm expecting and anticipating that most of the folks behind me are going to be dealing with their own teams on issues associated with the roads and the highways, the public transportation system, public safety, and an ongoing coordination with local communities around whatever issues they may have. If the power outage stuff picks up, we may end up working with some of our nonprofit colleagues to open up some of the shelters so that people have a place to go if we don't think we can get their power restored in a reasonable period of time. I know the Lieutenant Governor is going to stop by and visit a number of sites between here and Western Mass, and I'm probably going to take a trip over to the MBTA and spend some time over there catching up with them on how things are going. And then we're probably going to have a call later to determine where we think we are with respect to preparing for tomorrow morning, because one of the things obviously that's important to us is that we do everything we can to make sure that people can have what I would describe as a relatively normal commute tomorrow morning.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
All right, you've been listening, of course, to Governor Charlie Baker give an update on all of his departments and quite a bit of information from the crew there in terms of what's going on. State police added 200 extra police patrols, up to 600. 30 different towns across the state have opened their emergency operations center. More are expected. And obviously, LaToya, a lot of outages have spiked up in the last couple hours.
That's right. It went from 0 to about 23,000 in this last couple minutes or so. And we're watching these power outages closely, especially to see how the wind is being impacted and so forth and so on. But we also want to talk about the fact that the MBTA, the buses and the trains, the subway system at least, are running as normal, on schedule. We're seeing this car right here. I'm looking at these images, hoping that this car makes a nice soft turn as we watch this latest image from the Boston area.
The interesting thing is, a lot of the coastal areas, in Boston and to the South Shore, there is going to be some transition to rain, but the governor, as our meteorologists have warned, it's going to rain some and then it's going to get colder. So that doesn't mean it's less dangerous. And in terms of those snowfalls, we'll have, of course, our meteorologists will show you the snowfall maps, but it could be up to 2 feet in the Berkshires, Central Mass. We're going to talk to the DPW head in Worcester. Already has a half a foot of snow and 35 plus mile an hour wind. So a lot of the strongest stuff is still coming into the area.
We'll continue to monitor the situation for you. Take a quick break. Be right back with much more here on NBC Boston. Welcome back, everybody, to NBC Boston's early warning weather storm alert coverage of this 2017 blizzard.
Yeah, we want to bring in right now the DPW manager in Worcester, Edward Augustus. You know, we just talked. First of all, thanks for joining us. We know you're busy. Chief Meteorologist Matt Noyes was telling us about half a foot of snow, really blizzard-like conditions entering Worcester. Based on your expectations, how are things going there right now?
First, you have Paul Moosey, the commissioner of DPW, not Ed Augustus, city manager. But I can tell you in the last hour, the wind and snowfall rate has picked up considerably, making visibility quite low and driving quite difficult just based on the visibility. The snow rate is quite high right now, but it hasn't been too bad again until the last hour.
You know, I know that you canceled school, you canceled state offices in that area, and I've personally lived in Worcester, and the hills are something to be dealt with there. So let's talk about any injuries or any dangerous situations that have happened so far during this latest storm.
I'm not aware of any serious injuries anyhow. There is a significant amount of power outages that just have come in the last hour around the city. I think it's like 9,000 to 10,000 individuals out of power. Yeah, it's Worcester. We've got the steep hills, and we've got the topography that makes both plowing this type of snow and driving in it quite difficult. So we really want people to stay off the roads. I would say the next several hours coming up will be the worst of it. You know, then in the overnight things will improve, and we'll have a chance then to catch up with the plowing and the sanding. So hopefully tomorrow will be, fairly routine.
I assume you're fully deployed. In terms of this time of year, it's been a relatively light winter, but budget-wise, is everything in good shape in terms of how the winter's gone?
Well, actually, we've just about we have actually exceeded our budget a little bit. Even though we haven't had a lot of big storms, we've plowed 11 times this year, which is actually a little bit over. We normally plow about 10. We were at 58 inches a few days ago in terms of snowfall. A normal complete winter is like 68. So, it's been in small increments, but it has done a job on the budget. So this storm will be above budget.
Oh, certainly so. And as I think about your downtown, it's usually such a bustling area, and you have a very high homeless population that unfortunately is outside, especially in the downtown area. Has there been a challenge of dealing with that population, making sure they're okay as you remove snow and keep the road safe?
Again, it's not really the public works function, but I know the city manager has made arrangements with homeless shelters that they'd be open today during the day. Some of them are only open the overnight, so that people aren't out on the street in this kind of weather and this type of poor visibility and so forth. So I don't have any more details than that. I know that every effort has been made to get any homeless people into shelters.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I know you're very busy right now in Worcester. Best of luck with your snow coverage, and we'll speak to you again soon.
Okay, thank you.
Let's go someplace pretty close to Worcester, actually, get some impressions from our reporter in the field, Perry Russum in Leominster this afternoon. Perry. I guess we lost him. Obviously, when you're in blizzard-like conditions, that stuff tends to happen.
Well, it's freezing outside, so a shot just froze for a moment. We'll speak with Perry a little bit later on. But as we monitor the situation right now, we're joined again by our chief meteorologist, Matt Noyes, who has the latest track on those conditions in Leominster and all around New England.
Yeah, Matt, you gave me a personal update on Worcester before that interview, so what's shaking?
Yeah, and Worcester just crossed a half foot, and that's one thing that you had mentioned. The 6-inch mark is not the forecast, but rather where we're at now in Worcester. We expect to be more like 1.5 feet, perhaps, by the time we're done. Pretty close to it. You can see on the radar right now that we do have a rain-snow line that's continuing to move northward and coming in across Cape Cod. Much of the Cape is making the transition now. If we zoom in, we are starting to get wind damage reports. Each of these icons that you see indicates one of the new damage reports. Just heard actually out of Dorchester, where starting to get at least the sound of some limbs that seem to be falling outside. In Chelsea, we do have wind damage reports now. You've got 2 trees down, one on Park Street and one on Hawthorne behind Broadway. And that is just one example of where the damage reports are coming in from the wind. Again, watching a rain snow line that looks here like it's just south of East Falmouth, but in reality, it's lifting up all the way to Sandwich now. And I'll show you some of the technology. I showed it earlier. I'll show you some of the technology we use to track the rain snow line street by street coming up in just a minute. Right north of that, so just coming into Plymouth, do you see there's almost, this is such a dark blue, it almost starts to lose color. This is actually so intense that it's gone a little bit off of our color palette right now, which is to say, we've colored into about 3 to 4 inch per hour snow. But when you get into the heart of it, it's right about 4. You might hit 5 inch per hour in a couple of spots very briefly as it comes on through. We are totally blanketed in snowfall right now across the remainder of Massachusetts. When you come into southern and central New Hampshire, southern Maine's into it now. And our Storm Ranger radar, our Doppler radar that we've put on the back of a Dodge Ram 4500. And this is a setup that took years to build, but what it's done now is we've deployed it out to Metro West. Our meteorologist Chris Gloniger is operating it. And so what you're seeing now is an uptick in the snow right over Natick. You can actually see some of the deeper blues that are lifting over Natick, Route 9, Route 20, and the Mass Pike. So what about this rain snow line? As we get through 1:30, we expect it to lift northward through Plymouth County, Bristol County, and it will creep along the coastline. It will actually move north at the coast before it moves north inland. That's because of the influence of the 40-degree ocean water. But that rain snow line comes in through Boston by mid to late afternoon, the latest. When you get up around the Merrimack Valley, it may take you all the way until early evening. And by that point, enough dry air is coming in that much of the storm is beginning to shut down. So that's why our highest snowfall totals have mostly been northwest of the area. When you get out into central Mass and when you get up into southern New Hampshire, those of you that are watching us on NECN across southern Maine, you may end up with 2 feet of snow, but it drops off considerably the farther south that you go. Notice 7 to 14 in a very small stretch. This may be a little bit variable here on where it actually sets up. Why don't we go out to Chris Gloniger, because I showed you the radar scan from Storm Ranger, but let's see the truck. Let's get a little tour here. Chris, this is amazing technology.
Matt, it really is one of its kind, and we want to give you a tour, show you inside where all the controls are. They're back here in the extended cab, and this is our radar on display here. I'm going to try to show you, and it appears blue when it is in our graphics system. And I'm going to do a little quick query right near where we're at, and the radar DBZ's approaching 36. Now, to put that into perspective, during an afternoon thunderstorm, they're around 55, so this would be a good, healthy downpour. The actual radar is up here on this pedestal. It rises up off the bed of the truck, and we can control the scan. And we can do it 1 rotation per minute. The National Weather Service radar usually updates every 3 to 5 minutes. We can deploy this in the center of the storm and get up to the minute, literally up to the minute data right from the top there. And we've been tracking that rain snow line, and according to Storm Ranger, it's kind of getting held up. So it'll be interesting to see how much more snow we get before that rain snow line creeps up. It also has the ability to show wind speed and direction. Up here, we have an anemometer, and we have it pointed, so it has a northeast direction, so it can see the peak wind gusts. We recorded a 52 mile per hour wind gust. We're kind of protected here. I'm gonna run and show you what conditions are like here. I mean, poor visibility, and you can verify what this truck is showing right here. Near whiteout conditions, I'd say 200-foot visibility, and winds easily gusting to 40 miles per hour. So Matt, this is an amazing piece of technology, and we're so happy to have it part of New England's largest weather team.
I love it. Chris, thank you very much for the update there. It's stay warm. You look cold, but I know that you're enjoying our new technology. All right, meanwhile, folks, looking at the broader picture on the radar again from the fixed radar site from the National Weather Service that our tax dollars have paid for this one. And this gives you a nice coverage, but again, what happens is the farther out you go, the higher that beam shoots into the sky. That's why having a radar wherever you can move it really helps. You can actually see low to the ground and what's happening very close to ground level as opposed to a few thousand feet or more up into the sky. We'll be back with more details on the forecast coming up in a few. Watching the coastline, high tide about an hour from now. Minor to moderate coastal flooding in northeast facing coast. Back to you.
All right, Matt, thanks so much.
All right, so we saw the governor and his crew at the Operations Center in South Boston. We have Allison King there live with a look at what's going on there. Allison.
Right, this is where Governor Baker gave his press briefing just a short while ago, and he described a storm that is pretty much along the lines of what they were expecting. The major unknown is really the number of power outages, which went from just not long ago, very few, up to 23,000 about 15 minutes ago, and I'm guessing that number has already escalated. So this is one of their real concerns with this storm. Here's more from what Governor Baker had to say.
We're also being told that the snow is likely to turn to rain across most of eastern Massachusetts later today, and then after that, temperatures are going to drop into the early evening and tonight, which means we should all be mindful of ice on the roads, and a lot of work for our folks at the Highway Department in terms of treating that ice and trying to get it down to pavement by tomorrow morning.
Now, the really interesting thing about this room, of course, are the video screens, and there are many, many of them. There are many of them where you can actually see through the entire state and follow the traffic. I'm going to give you one example. Braintree. We showed you Braintree this morning. It was practically dry on the roadways, and you can see that certainly has picked up. Over here out in Western Mass, look at that flagpole. You can see how high the wind is. The wind strength is right there, and obviously a lot of snow there. Here we have Westfield, also out in Western Mass, near whiteout conditions, really. So this is the main point, is just to be safe, stay off the roads. Governor Baker, again, thanking residents in the state for staying home and saying it's really making the snow plow drivers' jobs much easier. Final note, they are hopeful that tomorrow morning will be a regular commute. We're live in South Boston. I'm Allison King, NBC Boston.
Well, Allison, they're hopeful, and we're hopeful, fingers crossed, that we're wrapping this thing up too.
Yeah, and the kids go back to school as well. Listen, we'll be right back, but as we take you to break, let's take a live look outside right now in Worcester, where the snow is coming down. These are live images. Matt Noyes, of course, updating the forecast. We'll be right back. Welcome back to NBC Boston. We didn't get to show it to people because of the governor's news conference, but we have about 10 reporters all over the area right now.
That's right, in the hardest hit areas. And Worcester, Massachusetts, because of its elevation, is always on this jackpot list. Alicia Palumbo, very familiar with that area, and joins us now. Hi, Alicia.
Hi guys, the snow definitely coming down a little bit more than it has been the last time we checked in with you, and the winds, when they kick up, they are really kicking up. You can see how much more snow we have here now. It has really piled up over the past hour or so, and the blowing and drifting with the winds is making for very treacherous travel. We actually just had a tractor trailer that was stuck here going up the hill on Route 9 that was stuck for the better part of 45 minutes. They had to bring out the DPW liquid de-icers to actually help create a path for it to get up that hill, and they were able to keep the roadways clear. But again, with that wind, it is more difficult to get down to that pavement, because as soon as they come and clear the roadway, it is covered again with this snow. And we are expecting, as the afternoon goes on,
So we are having some technical difficulty. Lost our Alicia Palumbo live for us in Worcester, but these are the images right now. And as you saw and heard from her, apparently it's so tough, the conditions are so tough in Worcester that a tractor trailer had some challenges and actually got stuck. Now, if the tractor trailer is getting stuck, I'm going to stay in studio for a little bit longer until the snow calms down.
Yeah, and of course we're plotting out if we're going to get a chance to see our kids today. But when it comes to Worcester, there's 35+ mile-an-hour winds. Some of the biggest winds are coming into that area, so I think it's going to get a little bit worse before it gets better.
Okay, we go from Worcester to South Boston, where the weather is always interesting, and also how people dig out their spots and hold their spots.
Yeah, and we go from Alicia to Alicia. Alicia Rodriguez in Southie for us. Hey, Alicia.
Hey, how are you? I'm going to try to face you as long as I can, but the wind certainly has picked up here in South Boston, and the snow is picking up. Road conditions are deteriorating. A lot of people are still out and about, but I'm going to show you what they're doing. They're actually facing the snow and walking backwards, and we found a lot of people really just trying to tough it out, and stores actually are trying to keep open. With quite a bit of notice, many are prepared for whatever this storm brings.
I'm gonna hop on the bus today, but I might have to walk home if they shut down the MBTA. That's why I'm dressed like this, so I think I'm prepared for it.
But in South Boston, several drivers didn't pay attention to parking bans, and car after car was towed from West Broadway just in time for the first flakes. But considering it's the week before St. Patrick's Day, the owner of Southie's Own considers herself an essential employee.
St. Patrick's Day is Friday, so people still have to come in and get their green on.
Even though the door is open and the benches are out, no customers yet. But across the street, the nail salon was the place to be.
You need some distractions too. Sitting there looking out the window, it didn't look so bad. But once I came around the corner and up going east, it's pretty windy. But I was thrilled that the nail shop was open.
Yeah, definitely pretty windy. I don't have any props, but hopefully you can see from the misery in my eyes just how bad it is right now. Again, road conditions also deteriorating, so really wherever you're headed in the city, it's a rough go. Reporting live in South Boston, Alicia Rodriguez, NBC Boston.
Alicia, thanks so much. Do you see the snow is seriously blowing in Boston? And how about north?
Yeah, let's go north to Lowell, Massachusetts right now. Monica Medea has been there all day long from when it started to what it is right now. Monica.
I'm a New Englander. Sunny one day, cold and snow the next.
Today, it's the latter, but that's not stopping everyone from getting where they need to be.
Oh, I love the snow. It's great.
At the Lowell Regional Transit Authority, buses are running for now. That could change as the weather worsens.
You're kind of caught between safety, and you're also caught between people that are already out in the roads and they need to get home.
Some people were forced to take the bus. This woman had to park her car at the bus terminal garage.
Because they were getting ready to tow. The police were on my street, so I had to come out. I didn't really want to.
Many got lucky with a day off the clock.
I'm super pumped to spend the day with my dog and hang out.
Monica Medea reporting from Lowell, Massachusetts. I used to live in Lowell, and they had some tough winters, but the people are always great. So that was
they always, and they're willing to talk as well. All right, we'll be right back.